Hello everyone, welcome to the Creative Cove. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Michelle and this is my first voiceover video, so go easy on me. I've trying to get into the tech here, so we'll see how it goes. Anyways, today I thought it would be fun to just do some quick interactive type of thumbnails here using some watercolor paints and some markers, pencil, and Posca pen. I don't have any pre-plans for this. I'm just diving in and playing with color. And these are my Mei watercolor paints. They're a 52 set watercolors, and I'm playing with some colors I haven't played with before. So, for example, the first color that you saw go down was an apricot color. Now I'm playing with a pen that is basically a waterproof pen, and at this point here, I just test it with a little bit of water to see if it's going to dilute and get messy. So I can see that it doesn't, so I'm happy with that. So we'll proceed with the pen. Again, putting some more apricot color down. And wanted to just play, just kind of not even think hard. I'm moving quick enough that I don't want to think. I just want to scribble, sketch, draw, doodle, throw some paints down, and play with some color. What I noticed doing this procedure, so to speak, is that things get to a point where I like them, and then I keep going, and then I don't like them, and then I keep going, and then I like them again. So there's really kind of no wrong or right to this intuitive style of abstract watercoloring. This is just an exercise for me to see where it takes me. Do I go dark? Do I go light? And also the opportunity to work with colors in this new palette that I have that I've not worked with before. So right now I'm just doing a series of mark making and scribbling along with that waterproof pen. So I'm starting to think about my color palette here, wondering what colors I'm going to be drawn to next. I really like this apricot color. It's a soft, almost kind of pinky skin tone. Just throwing it in again. I'm using believe a number 10 round watercolor paintbrush there. And now I'm dipping into what I believe is a fired gold orchid. Orchid? No. Orchard, I think it's called. Fired gold orchard. Anyways, it's like a terracotta color, which of course, if you follow my channel, you know I can't resist some really warm, creamy browns. And so of course I saw this and I thought this would complement the apricot quite well. I'm grabbing here I'm grabbing the actual pamphlet that I added the watercolors to because they're deceiving in the palette. So when you add them to paper, you can kind of gauge their accuracy in their color and saturation. So I'm going back into some yellow. Oh, let's see what color that is. I believe it is. Let me just find it. I believe that is the new Game Ago. They've got some funny color names. Game Budge. I don't even know what that means. It's a quite a bright yellow canary color, and also next to that is the permanent yellow deep, which turned out to be one of my favorite colors in this process. And again, just throwing it down, mixing it, working from block to block. I want to try and make all of these individual blocks, what I call thumbnails, cohesive in the sense that I'm going to use the same color palettes in all of them. I don't know where my color palette's going to go. It can range here. Like I said, this is completely intuitive. I have no idea where I'm going with it. But the idea is just to have fun and experiment. So I hope you grab some watercolors here and your tools and just playing along with me. Just throw some color down. This is, again, a great exercise to let loose, play with watercolor, play with what feels right to you, where the mark making goes, and use different tools. Like if you had crayon, for example, you could use a resistance where you would put some waxy surface down and the watercolor would repel from that. You could glue paper down. You can glue tissue paper down, newspaper, book pages, anything to start developing some interest in your little thumbnails. And it's a great way to discover what you like and what you don't like. So there'll be a point in here in my thumbnail where I'll say I really like this thumbnail, and you might think, I don't. And that's the beauty of art. It speaks to us individually. So I'm just going to keep playing here with some colors, kind of moving in. So there I was using pale orange. I go from a champagne yellow, pale orange to the apricot. Again, just swirling some funny marks, just seeing where it will go. Putting some dots in there, swipes. There's a part where I work with just a dry brush, kind of scrape the paint along. I'm not letting anything really dry at this point. Grabbing my color palette here, see what else intrigues me on this color palette. What else am I feeling in the moment? And I am feeling I'm feeling some green. So I dive into the olive green, which also is a color I get drawn to quite easily. Really love the richness of olive green. It's muted, but it's rich in transparency and in saturation, so that you can really play with these watercolors that way, where you can dilute them and you can use a full saturation, almost like an acrylic paint, which you'll see a little later. Sometimes I just feel the need to sit down and experiment and really play. I decided to record this where I made no sound and just enjoyed the process. And then I thought the results were kind of interesting. I didn't like all of them. I found some of them got away from me. They got a little dark in the end. But it's all about the process, and watching someone and their creative process can be really interesting. You might think, oh, I wouldn't have put that there, or I wouldn't have used that color. So watching somebody else kind of just slap paint down willy-nilly can be kind of therapeutic in some ways. Maybe even make you think about applying paint a different way. So still working with this olive green. Throwing it, I seem to gravitate to the corners quite a bit. The only thing I'm really bearing in mind when I'm applying the color, and like I said, I do it quickly because I don't want to overthink it. I just want to throw it in. But I'm always striving for a balance. I'm always looking for something comfortable, so to speak, to look at. Something where it looks even though it isn't even. The balance of color, the balance of composition, the balance of mark making. There's ways to achieve different looks of balance, and it's kind of hard to explain in the sense of watching this video. But you can achieve balance through many different ways. Like I said, you can do it through the color, where you can put a saturation of color in one corner and maybe introduce it on the other corner or in the middle. You can also do it where you can add color all over and then visually separate that color with another color or mark making. It's there's what you're also looking for too, and trying to talk and record at the same time, which is a bit challenging. But you can also, what was I going to say? Completely went out of my head. For balance, what was I going to say? Oh my goodness. Give me a second here. Oh, now I remember. My goodness. You can achieve balance through contrast. So as you can see, I don't have a lot of contrast going yet, and that's one of the things I found I struggled with a little bit while I was making these little thumbnails. I was moving along and I got it to the point where I was content, but I still felt it was missing something. And so you'll see later I start introducing some richer colors, or not richer, but darker. So some blues and some blacks. And you can achieve balance that way as well. So again, I apologize. It's my first voiceover video, so I'm watching and talking and trying to get my point across. And it can be a little challenging, these videos. I think trying to explain things and watch at the same time can be just as challenging as painting and talking at the same time, which is how I usually do my videos. So here's some pencil. I'm just scribbling in some pencil. I wanted to see what the graphite reaction would be. Would it dissolve? Would it repel the paint? Graphite, of course, has a shininess to it. Would that make things translucent? We'll see. So I'm, again, just scribbling on there. A lot of this, too, gets covered up. So through this process, you're going to find that a lot of the stuff I started with disappears. It all ends up being covered. Not all of it, but the idea is it creates these layers. And when you can create layers, it creates depth to your paintings. So it's nice to use washes in translucent colors and opaque colors and those kind of mixtures as well. And it can really create some beautiful effects of depth in your paintings. So I'd say probably for a beginner, the biggest challenge here is letting loose. Just let yourself go. Just pick up a pencil and scribble. And don't worry too much about the end result, because it's the process and the learning that you're really achieving here. You may or may not like the end result, and that's okay. You're learning as you go. And what I've always suggested with my quickie sketches and videos and my intuitive watercolor painting videos is keep all your artwork. Even if it's something you're not in love with, or you're like, oh gosh, I hope nobody ever sees that kind of paintings. And trust me, I have several of those too, and I've been painting for years. What's really nice is if you put them in a book, even date them on the back or something, and look at them maybe a year later or 6 months later and see how much your work has developed. Because a lot of art really comes from confidence. Being bold and confident and just saying, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just throw that in there. I'm either going to love it or hate it. And paint is never permanent. You can always cover it up. You can always start again. It's just paint. Playing with a little geometric there. Just really enjoy the idea of playing with some squares, and maybe they'll get covered, or I might play with that element a little bit more as I come across with more colors. You'll see too, I'm not mixing any colors on my palette. I'm just painting straight out of the little color pan. I want to use the full saturation of color and see what these palettes have to offer, and then mix on the paper. I might rub the brush into a few different colors in the pan, which probably makes some real serious watercolor artists cringe. I'm not very good at taking care of my supplies. I just jump in the moment and I just start painting. I'm not one of those people who sort my colors or figure out my colors. If I'm doing a big painting, for example, not so much watercolor, but acrylics, I would kind of have an understanding of what colors I might want to use in a painting, but I can promise you by the time the painting is done, very few of those colors are actually in the painting. That's how I like to paint. I don't sketch ahead of time. I don't work out a painting in a sketchbook. I might work out a concept in a sketchbook, but never the actual painting. I find I lose interest. I admire artists that do that, who do all that preliminary work and know exactly what they're doing and where they're going to place things. I think it's wonderful. For me, it doesn't work. I find when I start painting, if I've already painted it or developed the full painting in a sketchbook, I'm lost interest in actually painting it. I feel like, okay, well, I've done it already. I don't want to do it again. I've always liked the spontaneity of not knowing where the painting's going to take me. So, for example, I will paint a tree. I love painting trees, and I like to use color palettes that aren't necessarily what you would find in a tree, for, like, example, purples and blues in the leaves. But by the time I have that in my head, and then by the time I finish painting, I've gone into oranges and reds, and it can be frustrating. I'm not going to lie. It can be extremely frustrating because sometimes the color palettes just don't jump out at me, and I can be very frustrated with a painting. But I have learned and taught myself just to walk away. If I'm painting for a while and the painting is only changing and not improving, that's when I know it's time to leave it be. A lot of people ask me, when do you know a painting is finished? Well, that's one of the challenges, and I don't know if you'll ever get a straight answer from an artist. Again, for me, it's when the painting is to the point where I'm pleased with it and I am progressing, and then there's no more improvement on the painting. It just gets changed. The color changes or the composition maybe changes a little bit, but nothing's really improving. Then I know I'm done. And either I walk away from it and work on it later because I don't love it, or I love it and I leave it. So there, a little while back, I was busy yapping, but I introduced this really beautiful grass green. It's a very bright, fresh green. I thought it was a really nice, interesting color to add to this. And I kind of struggle with adding it and then taking it out and adding it again throughout this video. But the struggle is not a frustrating struggle. It's a learning struggle. I'm thoroughly enjoying myself while I'm painting these. Even though some spots are getting muddy, some things are getting a little lost and busy for my taste, but I'm just going with it and see where it's going to take me. And like I said, I'm not overly fond of the final results, but I still wanted to share this with you, even though I didn't love the end. Some of them I liked, and some of them I didn't like. So one of the things I didn't like about this process was how bright the white was on the background. I didn't like the contrast of the white and the little thumbnails, and I play with that a little later too, you'll see. I found the white just a little bit distracting. So here I am going in with a pen, and I'm checking just to see again if this is a water-soluble pen or not. The ink will bleed, and it doesn't, so I continue with the pen. I'm not sure what brand of pen that was. It is it's called True Red, but I don't know where I got it from. It's not something I normally use. I'm not sure where I got it from. The other supplies that I used was a pigment liner, and it came in the mailing watercolor set that I'm using, and also using just an HB standard pencil. And later I use a Posca pen, white, which is basically an acrylic paint. I'm also using a Sharpie king size black marker that shows up a little later. And what else? I'm working on a 140-pound watercolor paper. It is the Michaels brand. Let me just find out what it was called. It's just called Watercolor Pad, and it's 140 pound, 9 by 12 inches. It's again just the Michaels brand, so it's not super durable. And you'll see there's a spot in the video where the paper starts to dissolve a little bit because I've worked it a little too hard. So it's just again just an affordable watercolor paper that I can play and kind of get to know myself a little bit on these watercolor doodles, so to speak, these little thumbnails. I was thinking I might try and do some watercolor abstract landscapes. I thought that might be really fun, so this might be a good way to start loosening up, even though there's no reference here whatsoever to a landscape. I just wanted to loosen myself and kind of play again with these palettes. Some more mark making going in. And you can see almost all the original mark making I did with the initial pen has been covered. You can see a little bit shining through, which again is what this is all about, creating those layers. Anybody who loves to scribble would really like this project because you can just scribble away. Now here comes the Posca pen. So there's a point in here where I am scribbling away, and I drop a bunch of ink out of the pen, and then I use my finger and soften everything underneath that pen. And I really enjoyed how that looked. It kind of muted everything. Again, completely changed everything I just did. And it's just a way of discovering how to use different mediums and the effects they have. So this blended and softened all the colors and mark making that I did, and I really enjoyed that part. I think if I did this on a large scale on a canvas, I would have so much fun doing this. I'm not sure at this point how watercolor would work. Will the watercolor sit back on top of this? Have I created a barrier? I'm not sure at this point, but I'm having a great time smudging these colors out. I'm dabbing there with my finger to kind of softly blend it. without smudging at all like the other ones. My finger's getting really dirty, so I know I'm having fun smudging these colors. And when I did that there, I had dropped some, but my finger was dirty with other watercolor. It smudged around the perimeter of the thumbnail, and I actually thought I kind of like that because it's softened, it's subduing that bright white paper, which I find a little bit distracting. So I wanted to kind of grunge it up, and you'll see that in a little while, what I do there. I really had fun throwing that Posca marker down and seeing the effects it had by smudging. So here I am going back in and trying to figure out, what can I add now? So I go in, I believe I picked up the blue here, which is a Prussian blue. And I'm kind of testing it out on top of this Posca as well. Again, will the color be repelled? Will it sit on top? And at this point, it's kind of blending with the marker still because the marker's still wet. So I rinse my brush, hopefully, before I go back into the white paint, into the blue paint, just so I don't over-contaminate my my watercolor set. And there I go dabbing paint in the wrong section again. I am a messy artist, always have been. I'm going to scrub that off so it's not too distracting. And proceed back with the blue. And what I really liked about this blue was how the orange and blue really complemented each other. They are complementary colors, but how they became so transparent with each other was really kind of cool. So in some spots I'm using it in a watered down situation and some more opaque, stark blue, some patterns and things like that. Again, just playing. You can see how much these thumbnails change. And I don't really stop to think too much and just dive in. If I start thinking, then I overthink. And I don't want to overthink. I just want to work intuitively. I didn't want to speed this video up either. Of course, you can fast forward whatever you might consider a little bit tedious and boring. But I wanted to just show the process from beginning to end in real time. So that one's starting to get, in my opinion, a little bit too muddy for my taste. But what's nice about these is you basically can let them dry and play with them a little more. And you think about When we first started the video, I had some minimal mark making and some very soft apricot color, and now I have layers of richness and transparency of a couple of different colors. I'm going back in with that apricot and pale orange color. So this is where I start kind of feeling, or at least soon I believe I was thinking, okay, I'm missing something here. It's a little bit boring, a little bit muddy. What can I introduce next? And I realized that it needs more contrast. The one with the 3 dots has some contrast to it. It has some interest to it because there's some dark and light. It still needs a little something to me, but you can start kind of reading the direction of things as you process. There's something that might bother you about it, and you might not pick up on it right away. You might have to walk away from it and come back and then be oh yeah, okay, this needs this, or I need to add something here. And for me, it was contrast. I needed some darker color in here, or a richer pigment anyways, of whether I use a dark blue or a dark orange or a black. It needed something. Playing with pattern a little bit, see if that would solve my problem with some of these. Again, I don't think I realized it was the contrast that I wanted. So I was trying to resolve the problem by adding some patterns and solid color. And I think it improved it, but it was still lacking something. I'm treating these watercolor paints at this point more like acrylic, where there's very little water in my brush. So there, for example, I got muddy really quick because the blue was not dry, and I didn't like that, so I removed it with some paper towel. But I'm using the paint a little bit more like an acrylic paint here, where it's very thick. I like doing this sort of thing with all mediums. So I like doing it with acrylic and oil, just little thumbnails as well. It gets you a little bit more familiar with the mediums you're using. And like I said, you can mix it with anything, newspapers, anything, ripped other tiny little watercolor paintings that you've got. You can rip them up and glue them down. It's so much fun. And it's nice to work with things that react to each other. For example, with the wax crayon, how it would repel watercolor paints. Maybe we'll do a video on that. Quite curious. Could use inks where the ink would really kind of keep bleeding through all these colors. So this is a pretty long video. I do think it is like 50 minutes long. I kind of got carried away. Couldn't help myself. Again, still trying to figure out what I'm missing. Going in with some bright colors again, seeing if maybe building up a pattern or block, building up some more transparency might make me happy. I still feel like contrast, even though I don't think I realize it yet in the video. I still feel like it's craving some contrast. You might have just heard my sub pump go off. I'm in the basement filming, in case you're wondering what that sound is. Again, this is my first time voice over recording or whatever it's called, so I don't know how sensitive the microphone will be, if it's going to pick up every little noise in my basement. Probably. I've always enjoyed the contrast of geometric and organic together. So I like to play with the fluidity of the paint with some stark geometric shapes on top or underneath. I've always enjoyed doing that. Again, trying to figure out what it is I want to do here. So the answers don't always jump out in front of you. It's kind of like a little road to discovery here. I switched actually to a much smaller paintbrush. I can't remember when I did that. I wasn't really paying attention. But that is a number 3 craft ammo paintbrush. It's also a watercolor paintbrush. It can be used actually for a couple of different mediums. Going back in with some warm browns. I tend to, again, gravitate to blues, browns, and greens. I'm not huge on purples and pinks. I've never been drawn to those colors. I have used them in the past, and I try to force myself to use colors that I wouldn't normally use, but I figured for this video I wanted to use colors that I was familiar with and the way I like how they blend together, except for these new color palettes that I have, like the apricot and the pale orange, the champagne yellow. Those are all new to me in this color palette. So I was in this color kit, this little travel case. I really like those colors. So, oh, sorry, that is my little dehumidifier alarm going off. If you could hear that beeping. I knew that was coming. So here I'm going in with the pen again and realizing my paint is just way too wet for that. Then I had this little tool here that's a pencil, and it has this kind of, it's supposed to flick away your pencil bits, your eraser bits, but it's got some really spiky ends to it, and I thought it might leave some lines in the paint, which it's doing. And I didn't love that. after I did it, I was like, I didn't love it, but again, it's all about layering and experimentation. So I might not like it at this stage, and I don't actually like it at this stage, but I'm just playing. So we'll see where it's going to take me next. Trying to clean my pen. It's the worst thing for these pens to get paint on them because then they stop working. So I dipped it in the water, hoping it would clean it. I just want to see if I could get it going again, which it did. So I was like, okay, put it away before I ruin it. So that point, I did let things dry a little. I find they were getting a little bit too muddy, and then I realized, looking at it, this is where I thought, okay, I need some contrast. So I brought out the big guns, the big old Sharpie marker. Again, not knowing the reaction this is going to have with paint. Is it going to bleed and get very messy? Will the paint not sit on top of it? I'm going to find out. So at first I start a little bit soft, kind of a little nervous to put it down because I know it's such a serious black color, and then decided, just do it. Just go for it. Just throw it in there, and what will be will be. And so this is where I get a little bit more bolder and start throwing in some dark color here, which is basically a solid black marker. I do know in the back of my head too that if I overshoot it with the black, which I'm bound to do, I can always throw on that Posca marker over top and dilute it down. Again, nothing's really permanent when it comes to paints and markers and things. You can just keep playing. You just have to be prepared to get a little messy and a little sloppy, and maybe even in some places a little muddy. They're already liking that with the black, is just popping that green and white section way more now visually, way more interesting. Just seeing if it's wet, which they are, and I don't want to ruin my Sharpie marker. So I'm going to go in and scribble some more mark making here, layer after layer. And you can see how much these little thumbnails change over and over again. But up close, they create some really beautiful layers of colors and textures. I think I just ruined my pen again with some wet paint. That's probably my biggest challenge as an artist, is patience. I have very little patience. Here, decide to maybe throw some dots in, see if I like that. Again, patterns and textures. Going bolder. Realizing I'm thoroughly enjoying the contrast. It is scary to add a solid black over what you just spent the last 20 minutes doing, or 30 minutes painting. But sometimes you just gotta do it. Put yourself out there. It's how you grow as an artist, in my opinion anyways, is just experimenting, trying new things, seeing what you like, what you don't like, and what you might not like now, you might like next month. I say I don't like purples, I might love purples in a month. Never say never. Going in with that nice bright mint green, grass green it's called. It's not very minty actually. It's hard to explain. It's like a warm, cool color. So it could be cool on its own, but against other colors, it can be very warm. It's a very pretty color. And it's fresh. I'm going to miss that color in the next few months as I live in Ontario and we are entering winter. We're coming up pretty much mid-fall here. It's feeling like winter at nighttime. You can smell it in the air, so to speak. So I'm going to miss this bright mint green, warm grass green over the next few months. I just tell myself it just makes me appreciate it when it's back. I don't know if I could handle having green all year round. I do love snow and I do love winter. I just hate 9 months of it. Well, actually, here it's 6 months. But it can get pretty cold. And we got a huge dumping of snow last year. So we'll see what Mother Nature has in store for us this year. I too find my color palettes change in the season. I tend towards cooler colors or blues and things like that when it comes to painting in the winter time. I don't know why, I just do. I guess the mood of the colors reflect the mood I'm in. So there I am throwing in the black in those ones that were wet earlier. And now I'm going to saturate it with some more color. I just, again, trying to make them a little less muddy and a little more interesting. Those ones got very muddy. See if I can bring them back at all. Using those colors more like an acrylic paint at this point. But what's nice is I still love that green underneath. So you see there how I rubbed my finger over the paint to make it a little bit more transparent so that green comes through. And I really like that look. Soften some edges. And that watercolor paint, it kind of sat over top of the black marker with a little bit of smudging. It kind of took. But that's because I was using the paint more like an acrylic paint where it's thick. The minute I added a water solution over top of that Sharpie marker, the watercolors were repelled. It would not absorb. So another fun technique. Do a little splattering here. I'm trying to keep the splattering inside the box. Didn't splatter them all, just did a few. See what I thought about it. Trying to go back in with the pen, but the paint is still too wet. And me being impatient, I'm trying to insist, ruining my pen. And then I realized, no, it's not working. We'll just try and clean it and see if it works, and then try it again. I don't know what I'm thinking. So then I'm like, no, I'm just going to ruin it. So as I'm rubbing those colors, I go and rub it some more, and I kind of want to bleed the edges of my paint. And this is where it gets kind of grungy, which is the look I really like. It softens the box a little bit and tones down that white paper. I think that white paper was just a little too distracting for me. And then it gets really messy and fun, which I love. You're probably thinking, oh no, what has she done? And you wouldn't be the first. But as you can see, I'm just rubbing the corners of the box to wake up the paint a little bit and just smudge it out and soften it. It's just another little grungy look that I wanted to do. See where that went. think we're in the home stretch here. I think there's a little bit more left that I do. And that's the end. So if you've made it this far, thank you. If you're still with me. Just grunging up that white. I think I should have done this earlier. Maybe the idea of the contrast might have popped in my head a little bit earlier had the white not been so visually distracting. And then I get the kind of wise idea to try and rub some paint off inside the squares, and that's when I ruined the paper in that one square, which you'll see. A watercolor paper, even the super expensive, here it is here, the super good expensive stuff, it can only take so much abuse. I mean, it is paper, so it's not plastic. It is designed to be to absorb things, but it can only absorb so much. I like it way more now that it's got this grunge around it. And so let it dry a little more so that I could play with this Posca pen. And I'm going in with, again, a little more contrast between the dark and the light. See if I can pop some interest in textures, things like that. I really like these Posca pens. They were a good investment. I bought them off Amazon. I just bought white in a couple of different sizes, and I really like the surprise of using them. Sometimes they're a little messy and they bleed on you. The flow is a little heavy, but just smudge it out with your finger like I did and get some really cool results. I decided to put something a little organic in there just for fun. Everything was kind of square, and I thought I haven't tried something like this yet, so I'll give it a go. And I really like that. I think I'll play with that again. I'm drawn to botanical, organic shapes like this. They make me happy. So what are some of your favorite materials when you're painting? What do you like the best? Do you like to work with mixed media? Are you a regiment painter where you have everything figured out, organized, taped down, drawn out, ready to go kind of artist? Are you learning and beginning and just trying anything you get your hands on? What are some of the things you like? Let me know in the comments. Let me know how I did with my voiceover. Though I promise I will try and make a much shorter video. Maybe just focus on 2 or 3 squares. What's nice about working with this mini is that the paint does have more opportunity to dry while I'm working from square to square. And there I am dripping more of that white Posca pen. Scribbling it in, something really bold there, just out of the ordinary. Playing with contrast there with the patterns. Just pulling out a little detail now. Kind of like little mini abstract paintings. So what's fun about this too is you can play with this and then decide, ooh, you really liked that one. Maybe I'll paint a large scale painting of one of these little thumbnails, you know, and you can, that's kind of one of the ways you can develop your abstract style, playing with these little thumbnails. And I find when they're small like this, there's a lot less pressure. So this is where I started using my finger again, having fun, kind of putting my fingerprint in there. I did some dots and I didn't like them, so then I smudged them out with my finger, and then I really liked the fingerprints. Again, finger painting. It's coming back. Let's see how the Posca splashes. Softening it out with the finger. I know you're thinking, when does this end? When is it going to be done? Well, no idea. I just was thoroughly enjoying myself. Really just doodling away in peace and quiet. No music, no nothing. Just me and the sub pump. Really like that one that I had just done there with the bright white section. I think it was, that's the one where I ruined the paper too. So you can see none of these drawings, these little doodles or thumbnails are at all the same. They have elements that are similar, but they all turned out a little different. I am using a little black paint, so I find the Sharpie marker would give me some nice harsh edges, and I just wanted to soften them a little bit. I wanted to soften out some of those black edges. And as I was doing that, I realized, oh, I want some blue. I want some more blue in here. So I kept going. So there I am grabbing the Prussian blue and just scrubbing it on. And you can see the orange, translucent orange and blue shine together, which I really like. Definitely in the home stretch now, I promise. I might not be able to say goodbye at the end of this video because I'm not sure as I'm recording where it's going to end. I can't remember where I finished it, so I will say thank you for watching now, and I really hope you enjoyed this ridiculously long video of intuitive thumbnail painting with me. Hopefully you like the video. If you do, please give me a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments what you think, what you would like to see, ideas for this channel, and maybe what you'd like to see me paint or draw, something you'd like to learn, something I haven't done yet before, and maybe do some more of these. Again, let me know if you like that, and hit the subscribe button. And if you're interested in helping me, helping support this channel and me, check out my Etsy shop, and I'll have the link below. And other than that, thanks again, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. I will leave you in peace now.